Good to be with you once again, brothers and sisters, and all praises to the Most High. I'm your host, the Apostle Reuben of IUPR Bible Radio, podcasting out of Little Rock, Arkansas, to the true saints of the Most High God. Again, brothers and sisters, we've been without the internet for 2.5 weeks. That is why we have, I would say, been uploading 10-minute videos back to back to back. But nothing is like a full podcast episode. Nothing. Gives you a chance to sit down, grab the Bible, and get the precepts. Put them together for thought and understanding. Now, I draw your attention again, brothers and sisters, to this screen. Now, again, I typed in, was the doctrine salvation to all taught during slavery? Slavery now. During these times in history. Now I'm going to show you the answer they gave. No, salvation was not taught to all enslaved people. All enslaved people. It was not taught to all. While many enslaved people adopted Christianity and found hope in the strength in its message of salvation and liberation, according to Christianity Today, slave owners frequently restricted or controlled access to religious instruction and practice. Why? It was for a reason. They were not even teaching them about salvation nor anything in the Bible, except slaves, obey your masters. You know. Make sure you just continue to obey. That's the part of the religion they gave to the slave, making sure he'd understand that. That's why it says slave owners frequently restricted and controlled how much you learn, access to religion and instruction and practice as well. Some masters even opposed teaching their slaves Christianity altogether. Why? Fearing that it might encourage thoughts of freedom and equality. Freedom and equality. Like for instance, Luke 1, verse 70, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies. See, brothers and sisters, Christians don't teach people being saved from people. They teach people being saved from themselves. That's what they teach them. We need to be saved from our own sins, our own selves. No, we shall be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. We shall be saved from our enemies. Israel shall be saved from their enemies. Again, their enemies would be who? Who would the enemies be? Nehemiah. Who would Israel's enemies be? I'm going to give you a verse that shows who their enemies are. Pay attention. Nehemiah 5:9. This is when Judah, basically, with a few sprinkles of northern kingdom, came out of the Persian captivity to go back and rebuild the temple. Ezra is in charge of the temple. Nehemiah is in charge of the wall, the protection of the temple. Also, I said, it is not good that ye do. Ought ye not to walk in the fear of our God because of the reproach of the heathen, our enemies? The Gentiles are the enemies of Israel. The Gentiles are the enemies. The Gentiles are the enemies. So when we go back to Luke 1, see, it's a lot, brothers and sisters, that's not there. Luke 1, watch this. Luke 1, just giving you a little bit. Luke 1. Verse 71, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all that hate us. Saved from our enemies. Now I'm going to give you an example of salvation from the enemies. The book of Romans chapter 8. Real quick, verse 2. Romans chapter 8, verse 2. Pay attention. For the law of the Spirit of life in Christ, the Messiah, hath made me free from the law of sin and death. Now, for the law of the Spirit, I want you to look at this now. The law of the Spirit of life. Now, it says, the law of the Spirit of life. Ezekiel 33, real quick. Ezekiel 33, verse 15. I just want to read it. The law of the Spirit of life. Ezekiel 33, 15. It says this. If the wicked restore the pledge, give again that which he had robbed, walk in the statutes of life. What are the statutes of life? Without committing iniquity, he shall surely live, he shall not die. Pay attention. If the wicked restore the pledge, give again that he had robbed, walk in the statutes of life. The statutes of life are these. These are the statutes of life. Without committing iniquity, without transgressing the law, he shall surely live, he shall not die. That die is the second death. Revelation 2:11. This is salvation right here. So the statutes are of life. So when I go back to Romans 8 and 2, Romans 8. See, Christians try to change this thing up. When it says for the law of the Spirit of life, the law which is of the Spirit of life are these. These are the laws. These are the statutes of life right here. The Christians can't change that. For the law that is of the Spirit of life in Christ the Messiah has made me free from the law of sin and death, which is the priesthood. Priesthood. This is the law of sin and death. You sinned. You didn't have an offering that was sufficient for the sin. You got stoned. So there's two laws in this verse. So when it says for the law of the Spirit of life in Christ the Messiah, look at the law of the Spirit of life. So the law is of the Spirit of life. Revelation again. Revelation. Chapter 11. Verse 10. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them. Them is a people, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another. Because these two prophets, which is Israel and Judah, tormented them that dwelt on the earth at a time. But watch this. And after 3 days and a half, a dispensation of time, the Spirit of life from God entered into them. What is the Spirit of life from God? The law. The law entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Notice, their enemies beheld them who were called up. See, when they received the Spirit of life, which was the law, they stood upon their feet. And great fear fell upon them that saw them. Saw them what? Teach this book. Do the works. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, the them were the two prophets, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. Watch this. And the same hour there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain men 7,000, a specific number. And the remnant were affrighted. Who is this remnant? Because when you look up, we're showing you, they try to say, oh, Moses and Elijah was these two. What was the two prophets? When it says, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth, that two prophets is not going to be called a remnant in verse 13. There's only one remnant that is going to be saved. There's only one remnant that's going to be saved. One. That's why it says in Joel 2:32. You got to understand these things. Joel 2:32. We know what we're talking about. Only one remnant is going to be saved. Joel 2:32. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered, saved. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord has said, in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. What does it mean when it says, and the Lord hath said? We're going back to Isaiah to show you. Joel understood the book of Isaiah because he read it. The remnant that shall be saved is Zion. That's the only remnant. Isaiah 10. There's no record of any other remnant being saved than Israel. Isaiah 10:20. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as were escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote him, the enemy, the Gentile. The one that smote them was the enemy, the Gentile. That was the one. But they shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth. The remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty God. For though thy people Israel be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant of them shall return. The consumption decreed shall overflow with righteousness. The consumption is fire. Consumption is consuming. When something's consumed, that's burned, it shall overflow with righteousness. It's going to happen. So, understanding that remnant and going back to Revelation, Revelation 11, verse 13, and the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory unto the God of heaven. The remnant were the ones that were saved in verse 12. The voice that says, come up hither, were the remnant of Israel in verse 13. There's nothing they can do about that. There's no other remnant recorded to be saved than Israel. That's why we know that those two witnesses were Israel and Judah, northern and southern kingdom, because they were the remnant. That is who God told to come up hither. And the enemies beheld them. So enemies are beholding Israel go up, not the enemies going with them. The enemies are not going with them. They're going to stay back and get burned up. But you see, Christians want you to think See, they say, well, you know what? Let's not teach. Let's not, go into the details of it. Some masters even oppose teaching their slaves Christianity altogether, fearing that it might encourage thoughts of freedom and equality. What would encourage them to have thoughts of freedom and equality? What we just read. You being saved from the enemy. But Christians try to teach, oh, you're going to be saved from your sins. You're going to be saved from yourself, hiding the enemy, which is them. And our people, our ignorant people, this is all I can show you. Our ignorant people, man, these black pastors follow right in behind them. Even though you can look it up, salvation wasn't taught to all. If it wasn't taught to all from the beginning, it was a reason why. But that's what's happening right now. So as we go back to the book of Zechariah chapter 8, because it's funny, Zechariah chapter 8 verse 20. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities. And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will also go. So one's going to go to another, from one city to another. They're going to say, let us go speedily and pray before the Lord, and seek the Lord of hosts. I will also go. Pay attention. We're going to get this straight. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. Now it says, and many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord. Now here is the verse right here we're going to use as an example. What I mean by that is, will we find 3 or 4 more prophets that are going to say that this many people and strong nations that are going to seek the Lord is everybody? Or is this many people and strong nations scattered Israelites? Now remember, it says to seek the Lord. They shall come and seek the Lord. Why would they seek the Lord if they already supposed to know him? This is why. I want to show you this. Now, where we are about to go, let me read it to you first and then explain. The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 15. 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 1. It says, and the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Oded. And he went out to meet Asa, King Asa, and said unto him, hear ye me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin, southern kingdom. The Lord is with you while ye be with him. So he's only with you if you're with him. And if ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if ye forsake him, he will forsake you. Here it is. Now for a long season, Israel hath been without the true God. Look, without the true God, and without a teaching priest, and without law. How can that be? This is what the Christians don't want to talk about. This is what the Christians don't want to talk about. There were times where Israel, when they disobeyed God, they had went without him. Notice it says, now for a long season Israel has been without the true God, without a teaching priest, and without law. The only way this could happen is if they're in captivity, serving wood and stone. This happens when you're in idolatry among the nations. You do not know your God. That's why, remember, that's why it says in Jeremiah 17. And see, this is one of my favorite verses, but this is what could happen. Jeremiah 17, just this precept real quick. Jeremiah 17 verse 4. And thou even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee. See, to discontinue from the heritage would be what? We're going to come back here. What was the heritage? Psalms 119. Look at that heritage. Psalms 119. It says this, Psalms 119 verse 110. The wicked have laid a snare for me, yet I erred not from thy precepts. Thy testimonies have I taken as an heritage forever. For they are the rejoicing of my heart. See, one of the primary heritages of Israel, or I should say the primary part of the heritage of Israel, was the law. Notice, thy testimonies have I taken as an heritage. So Israel's heritage, the first part of the heritage of Israel, wasn't the kids, the land, it was the law. That was the first part of Israel's heritage. So the laws were an heritage. And you know, that's why I'm saying Israel, because it was an heritage for Israel. So when we go back to Jeremiah chapter 17, Jeremiah 17 verse 4. And thou even thyself shall discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies. In your land. That's how you go. We're going to go back. I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. Thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. So we were going to discontinue from the heritage. What was the heritage? 2 Chronicles. Chronicles 15. We're showing you here, brothers and sisters. 2 Chronicles 15 and 3. Now for a long season Israel hath been without the true God, and without a teaching priest, and without law. Without law. That was the heritage. The heritage was the true God, a teaching priest, and the law. That was the heritage. They had been without. These things have happened before, brothers and sisters, during the time of kings. Paul said in Romans 15 and 4, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures, which is the prophets, might have hope. It's showing you Israel many times has discontinued from their heritage, which was a true God, a teaching priest, and the law. So when we go to Hosea, I want you to picture Hosea chapter 3, because we hope you to make sense of this. Hosea 3 verse 4. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim. Discontinue from thine heritage. In order to abide many days without a king, prince, sacrifice, image, ephod, and teraphim, you are in your enemy's land. You are in your enemy's land. Notice these two verses. You are in your enemy's land. You don't have a king, a priest, a sacrifice, an image, an ephod, or a teraphim. So if you don't have any of these, what do you have? 1 Corinthians 12. And even before we do that again, Romans chapter 9, verse 3. For I could wish that myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, my kinsmen, according to the flesh, who are Israelites. Now you notice, Christians can't do anything about it. Again, your brethren is your kinsman according to the flesh. Africans were not calling Israelites brethren. Israelites were not calling Edomites brethren. Israelites were calling Israelites brethren, whether they were far or scattered, far or scattered, far or scattered. They were still Israelites. So Paul's brethren are Israelites. So notice 1 Corinthians 12. The Christians cannot prove nowhere in the text that brethren means anything else. Are we talking about the text? Find us a verse. Find us a verse. Brothers and sisters, I've been issuing this for years, and they still ain't found no verse to prove that brethren means anything other than your own people. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. Come on now. The Gentiles were his brethren that were in idolatry. You are not going to find none Jew, none Israel in the book. They could try to say what it is, brothers and sisters. You're not going to see Goy in the book. You're not going to see none Israel, none Jew. And that's not what Paul is identifying as a Gentile. You know that the ye is his brethren that were in Corinth. Ye know that ye were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. So when they were worshiping idols, when they were worshiping idols in other lands up under the Roman Empire, look at it again. You know that you were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols. So a Gentile was an idolater. And how does idolatry begin? How does it start? 2 Chronicles again. 2 Chronicles chapter 15. We're going to go right back again. 2 Chronicles 15 and 3. It says, now for a long season, now for a long season, Israel has been without the true God. If they're without the true God, what do they have? A false God, without a teaching priest. Why? Because there is no more priesthood. They're in another land. And without a law. Why? Because they're keeping another law. They're keeping the statutes of the heathen. Like it says in 2 Kings 18 and 7. But watch this. Pay attention. But when they in their tribulation, did turn unto the Lord God of Israel and sought them, he was found of them. So when they in their tribulation, which had been without the true God, without a teaching priest, and without law, but when they in their tribulation, so again, they were without the true God, a teaching priest, and without law, because they were in trouble under the other nations. That's trouble. Jeremiah 30 and 7. Tribulation. Trouble is tribulation. So when Israel was in tribulation, they had no true God, no teaching priest, and were without the law. Watch this. But when they in their trouble did turn to the Lord God of Israel and sought him, he was found of them. So Here's an example of Israel without God, teaching, priests, and law. They were to turn and seek him. They were. Notice, they were to turn and seek him. Those that were in idolatry, when this is this way, they're in idolatry. If they turned and seeked the Lord. So we're seeing verses that say, if Israel return and seek. Hosea 3 again. Hosea 3. Verse 4. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim. Afterwards shall the children of Israel return and seek the Lord their God. I thought the nations were going to seek him. We keep seeing Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. Latter days is the last, right now. So we're seeing who was going to turn and seek the Lord. This is two verses that say Israel is going to turn and seek the Lord. Now remember, we read to you 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 12. And we're going back here for a reason. 1 Corinthians 12, 1 and 2. Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. Ye know that ye were. Were means you used to be. Gentiles. Carried away unto these dumb idols, even as ye were led. You were Gentiles. Brethren. So a Gentile is another word for an idolater. So I go to a place right now. Now I'm going to open this up. Isaiah chapter 11. Isaiah chapter 11. Verse 10. In that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. So it says, and it shall the Gentiles seek. Now are these Gentiles non-Jews, non-Israel, Goy, or are these the idolatrous Israelites scattered in other nations? Next verse. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the isles of the sea. So the Gentiles in verse 10 are the remnant of his people that are left from these nations. From these nations. Look at this now. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations. The nations, oh, wait a minute, hold on. I wanted to see, can I find this real quick? Been a while since I've been on here. Here is what I wanted. Now we're going to take a look at all of them. I'm not going to take a look at the uncircumcised. I already know that if I was going over that. But heathen, people, nation. Remember, brothers and sisters, the highlighted letter, the dark C, is when it says heathen, people, nation. That's what we're going to go down. Watch this. Gentiles, nation, people. It's the same thing. Whatever's after nation people or people nation, that's added. That's added. The only thing that heathen means is what's in bold black. People, nation. Gentiles in bold black. Nation, people. Heathen. People, nation. People, nation. Gentiles, nation, people. It's no different. The bold black letters is what it means. What they added behind it is gibberish. They just put that. See, they knew that people would pay attention to the definition, I should say. And what I mean by definition is, let's think of it like this. If I say heathen, people, nation, usually used for a non-Israelitish people, thus has the meaning of Gentiles. That's what they see. And they look right over the bold black, nation, people. Can't do that. Gentile, nation, people. Usually it means a non-Israelite people. They got the scriptures behind it. Usually it means. Usually. That's why they say usually, because it's not all the time. But they do this to have you skip over what it truly means in bold black. Heathen, people, nation. Gentiles, nation, people. That's it. So when I go back up, it says, and he shall set an ensign for the nations, the Gentiles, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Now notice, he shall set up an ensign for the Gentiles. That's the nations. That's the nations. That's what it means. Nation, nations. And shall assemble the outcast of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. That is who he's setting up an ensign in front of. Those nations are northern and southern kingdom. But notice it says, shall assemble the outcast of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners. Notice it says dispersed. What do you mean dispersed? Ezekiel 36. Again, I'm just going over these because there's a lot of people that know my teachings and a lot that don't. So I continually have to, teach them. But I'm going to one precept just to get it done. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries. According to their way and according to their doings, I judged them. So they were dispersed among the heathen. They were dispersed among the heathen. Dispersed. John 7:35. Then said the Jews among themselves, whither will he go that we shall not find him? Will he go unto the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles? Who were the dispersed among the will he go? See, it's pretty crystal clear, but the Christians try to turn it. Will he go unto the dispersed among? He's going to the dispersed. Who are the dispersed among the Gentiles? Israelites. And teach the Gentiles? Christians try to make you think when it says, oh yes, Israel, it was the dispersed, but he's still going to teach the other Gentiles. No. The dispersed were called Gentiles. The dispersed were called Gentiles by their own brethren. That's what Ephesians 2:11 was about. That dispersed among the Gentiles were Israelites, and they were called Gentiles too. And here's the verse once again to prove it. Isaiah 11. Isaiah 11. Verse 12. And he shall set an ensign, he shall set up an ensign for the Gentiles, and shall assemble the outcast of Israel and gather together the dispersed. So the nations that were dispersed the nations, the Gentiles that were dispersed, was northern and southern kingdom. Right here. Right here. And he shall set up an ensign for the Gentiles, the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Whatever they want Gentiles to mean, that's what they want it to mean. But we're gonna shut that down. So when we go back to Zechariah, I just wanted to show you that. When we go back to Zechariah chapter 8. Verse 22. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before the Lord. So it says, and many nations shall come to seek the Lord. But every time we even seen the Gentiles that were going to seek the Lord. We seen the Gentiles that were going to seek the Lord. They were the dispersed of Judah and Israel among the nations. That's what you're reading. They'll have you think that all people are going to come seeking the Lord. No, the Bible does not. No. It just doesn't. Now, remember, they shall seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem. Now, we're going to show you a verse in the Bible, or verses. We're going to go back as far. No, we're going to go forward. We're going to go forward. Isaiah 65. Now, this is salvation here. We're in salvation. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered nor come to mind. Behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. Behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. Revelation 21:1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Same thing Isaiah said. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. So new heavens and a new earth. New heavens and a new earth. They'll read this one, but let's go back to Isaiah's. Isaiah 65. And this is why they don't read Isaiah's account. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come to mind. There we go. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy. Not all people. This is why they won't read it. This is why they won't read it. And her people a joy. A new Jerusalem is what it's talking about. I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, in her people, and I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles 6. Because you get tired of foolishness, brothers and sisters. I get tired of foolishness. I really do. Now, here's what we're going to do. The book of 2 Chronicles, chapter 6 and 6. But have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Israel. My people Israel. My people is Israel. Funny how that's just so hard to understand. Over my people Israel. First Samuel 15:1. Samuel also said unto Saul, the Lord has sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. His people Israel, my people Israel. Joel. All people are not God's people. Joel 2. Verse 27. And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God and none else. And my people shall never be ashamed. My people. We're not seeing all nations being his people. Not seeing that. You'll never see that. Never. Doesn't exist. My people. Just in case. Just in case. Because I don't want you to think Acts 7:34. I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and I am come down to deliver them. And now come, I will send thee into Egypt. So his people, my people, was Israel. All people were never his people. All people never became his people. My people is Israel. Point blank. Point blank. Verse after verse is going to testify this, prophet after prophet. So when we go back to the book of Zechariah. No. Why? What foolishness? Isaiah 65. Verse 17. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in him that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy, her people. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. So the only ones that are going to be in Jerusalem, were his people. This is the new heaven and the new earth. In other words, salvation. I want you to look at them, pay close attention. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. That's Israel. And the voice of weeping shall no more be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. So who's going to be in the new Jerusalem? His people. No more crying, no more tears, no more. So when it says, and I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people, the people who are going to be in Jerusalem was Israel. New heavens and a new earth. So how can we go back here and say in the book of Zechariah, witness to witness now, Zechariah chapter 8. And we just saw in the new heavens and the new earth it's only going to be Israel. But in Zechariah 8:22, Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord. When did it say? See, that's why I say of hosts in Jerusalem and pray before the Lord. So we see seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem. So who would be the many people, strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem? The scattered Israelites, the Gentiles that are going to seek him in Isaiah 11 verses 10 through 12. Precept must be upon precept. The only ones that are going to be in Jerusalem, in the new heavens and in the new earth, in that land is Israel. That's it. You saw it with me. New heavens and the new earth now. So if they say that Zechariah 8:22, this is talking about other nations joining Israel in salvation, Isaiah didn't see that. That's why I know you must have precepts to prove what is true, even when it comes to one verse. Because all we saw that seek the Lord are those that were scattered. 2 Chronicles 15:3, that had been without a God. Hosea 3:4, those that had discontinued from their heritage shall return and seek the Lord. That's why it says, when you go back in Psalms chapter 22, here it is, brothers and sisters, Psalms 22 verse 27. It says, and the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord, and all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. Now it says, all the ends of the world shall remember and turn. Remember and turn. Remember and turn. And turn. The ends of the world. So who's going to be the ones that remember and turn to the Lord? This is obvious. Let's go right back to Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 10. Watch this now. It says this. And they of Ephraim shall be like a mighty man, and their heart shall rejoice as through wine. Yea, their children shall see it and be glad. Their heart shall rejoice in the Lord. Look at this. I will hiss for them and gather them, for I have redeemed them. Ephraim, talking about Ephraim now. And they shall increase as they have increased. And I will sow them among the people, and they shall remember me in far countries, and they shall live with their children and turn again. Who's going to remember the Lord and turn? Ephraim. They're going to remember, because Judah is going to help them remember. Understand. Nations can't remember. Look at this. Nations can't remember a God they never had. They can't. That's why things are screwed up today. Nations can't remember. Look at Psalms. Wait a minute. Psalms 147. Psalms 147. Verse 19, he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. How can the nations remember what they never had? So you know it ain't talking about the other nations. He never gave the nations laws. The nations never knew him. So how could they remember who they never knew? You got to think, brothers and sisters. these that were to remember him were from Ephraim, because they forgot. How did they forget? Idolatry. That simple. So when I go back to Zechariah, you're going to see this. Zechariah 8. You put these two things together. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord. Those many people and strong nations that are coming to seek him was northern kingdom with southern kingdom as remnants. They shall seek him in Jerusalem. They're the only ones. The people of Israel are the only ones that are going to be in Jerusalem in the new heavens and the new earth. That's it. So we know that these many people and strong nations are Israelites, because the only ones that are going to be in Jerusalem in that day is Israel. And pray before the Lord. We're going to be praying before the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of nations. 10 men even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So again, 10 men out of all languages are going to take hold of the skirt, which is the robe of him that is a Jew. Now, believe it or not, brothers and sisters, this happened before. This already happened before, but it's going to happen again. Now, we're going to give you an example of how it happened. The book of Esther, chapter 8. Esther chapter 8. Now, the reason why I'm going here is because I want you to see definitely how this works. Okay. I want to go to Esther chapter 8, and then we're gonna skip down a little bit because I need to make this point, because I need to. Esther chapter 8. In verse 9, this is a long verse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, that is the month of Sivan, and the 23rd day thereof, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded unto the Jews, and to the lieutenants, and to the deputies and rulers of the provinces which are from India unto Ethiopia, and 120 and 7 provinces. So 127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof. Pay attention. And unto every people after their language. Every people after their language. And to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. So language, right? To every people and their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language. Now I want you to pay attention to what happened. Look at this. We'll get to the point. He wrote these letters. Now watch verse 13. The copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves of their enemies. Look. Let's look at this. I'm just going to read on down. So the post that rode upon the post is the mailman that rode upon mules and camels went out, being hasted and pressed on by the king's commandment, and the decree was given at Shushan the palace. And Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Look at this. Look. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. The Jews had light. What was that light? Proverbs. What do you mean they had light? I'm going to tell you what brings light. We're going to show you what brings light. The book of Proverbs 6:23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light. Light. And reproofs of instruction are the ways of life. So that light the Jews had were the reproofs of instruction, which again was the commandment. So let's go back to Esther. Esther 8. Esther 8. Verse 16. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. All of those are the laws, what the laws bring. But watch this. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews. Stop. Here we go. And many of the people of the land became Jews. Now, Christians may say, well, see, this proves that according to this verse, many people became as the Jews. No, I want you to pay attention to this specific. Don't forget about this. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. Pay attention to that good day. Keep your heart set to that good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now we're going to keep extra emphasis on good day, because on that good day, many of the people of the land became Jews. You just can't become a nation from another nation. But we're going to show you a good day. So I want to go to the book of Esther 9. Remember that now. We're going to read this again. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. The fear of the Jews. Now I want to go to let's take a look at this good day. The book of Esther, chapter 9, verse 19. Therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar the day of gladness and feasting and a good day, and of sending portions to one another. Pay attention. Let's drop down to verse 22. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies. The Jews rested from their enemies. And the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day. that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. Notice when you see, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, meaning if they rested from their enemies, which are the Gentiles, if they rested from their enemies, which were the Gentiles, that means that the Gentiles were not in that rest on that good day. They weren't. Look at this. And the Jews rested from the Gentiles. Their enemies were the Gentiles. That's who's around them. And the month which was turned unto them for sorrow to joy, and from mourning unto a good day. Good day. So when they had rest from their enemies, that's when it was a good day. When they had rest from their enemies, that is when it was a good day. Back to watch. Good day. Esther 8 verse 17. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. That good day involves rest from the enemies. And many of the people of the land became Jews. Who were those people that became Jews? The Jews that were scattered out there. They became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. They came right back unto a religion that they did not have. See, the Christians want to try to make you think. They want to try to make you think that Israel was never without God, without a teaching priest, like we read. 2 Chronicles 15 and 3, they had no identity of their God. But when they sought, they found him. They were without a teraphim. Hosea 3 and 4. They were without a teraphim, an ephod, a law of image, a priest, a king, a prince. No knowledge, discontinued from their heritage. There were many Jews scattered among the nations. Many. See, on this good day, many of the people of the land became as Jews. But when we go right back over to verse 19, 9 verse 22, we're going to show you, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies. See, the thing is, brothers and sisters, the rest that they had from their enemies, they were delivered. This is what Mordecai was, a deliverer of his people in the time of Esther. Esther and Mordecai helped deliver the people from their enemies. Because Haman, an Edomite, the Agagite, wanted them dead. No one else was included in that good day but them, because they had rest from their enemies. That's why I said that good day. Pay attention to the good day. It continues to tell you. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, the Gentiles, and the month which they turned unto them from sorrow to joy. The month, as we read over in Esther 8:17, from mourning unto a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. So with the post went out to those Jews and those that were throughout all lands, most of those Jews became Jews. See, I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Let me go back to, watch this. I know it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. That, well, it says no. In every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness of feasting and a good day. They had it. They had that good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now, did anybody become a Jew? No. Because it says in verse 19, chapter 9, verse 22, it says, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, showing you that no one came in from the mourning and the sorrow into that good day but them. They were the only ones there. It does not record a mixed multitude with them in feasting in that good day. It does not record that. It does not record that. Therefore, all the Jews of the villages that dwelt in unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar, a day of gladness and feasting, a good day, and of sending portions one to another. Everybody was not involved in the good day that took place in the book of Esther 8:17. In that good day, the many of the people of the land became Jews, were their brethren scattered, because the fear of the Jews fell upon them. That's why it says, and watch this, now in the 12th month, that is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews had hoped to have power over them. So does it look like they were becoming? No, they were still looking for power. Their enemies, which were the Gentiles, were still looking to have power over them. Can't be both ways. If you got enemies, if you have enemies, there's no way an enemy can become a Jew. That's what we're telling you, brothers and sisters. Christians try to throw out the enemy. No part. You can't tell me, oh, well, if the enemy believes in Jesus, he can be saved. No, all the enemies are going to die. Every last one of God's enemies are going to perish. You can't read about enemies wanting to have control over them, and then they became as a Jew because, no. Mordecai is an example of where we're about to go. The book of Zechariah. You guys got to learn what an enemy is. An enemy cannot be saved with that's why it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations. 10 men, all the languages of the nations. Languages, why? Even indeed shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, like Mordecai, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Those that take hold out of all languages was other Jews scattered. In other words, Gentiles. You don't understand. If you're in captivity, worshiping other gods, what are you going to be? Gentiles. 1 Corinthians 12, 1 and 2. That's what we're telling you. When you were scattered in other nations without God, you were an idolater, a Gentile. That's why it says became as a Jew. The Christians, they that little detail has been throughout all the Bible. That has been the mystery of the Bible. When you go back and look at 1 Corinthians 12, you got to make sense of it. This is showing you. 1 Corinthians 12, 1 and 2, now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I will not have you ignorant. Paul's brethren will be Jews. They're identified as Jews. But what happened? Ye know that ye were Gentiles. How can a Jew be a Jew? Brethren, his brethren were Israelites, Jews, other Jews. But they were Gentiles because of idolatry. They were Gentiles because of idolatry. They were Gentiles because of idolatry. And when you go right back to Esther, remember now, they were Gentiles. These Jews were identified as Gentiles. So when you go back to Esther chapter 8, verse 17, we're telling you it's this simple. When it says, in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness and feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews. Why? Because they were Gentiles in idolatry. That's when they became as Jews. It's what the Bible says. For the fear of the Jews fell upon them. This thing has always been about identity. Christianity knows that. If you are a Judean in idolatry, Paul says you were a Gentile. Even Christ says, even the Jews said in John 7:35, the dispersed were called Gentiles. Why come? Idolatry. Saying the same thing here. That good day, many of the people, which were the nations, became as Jews. Why? Because they were in idolatry. Now it says, well, it doesn't say that. What you mean? How else can it happen? On this good day, there was nothing but them, and they had rest from the enemies, which were the Gentiles. So a Gentile, which was the enemy, how can an enemy become Jews? No, it never happened. The enemy is still the enemy. The enemy is still the enemy. So we know that these that became Jews were Jews in idolatry. That's how we know. And so when we go back to Zechariah 8, we don't understand how they think that this is talking about other nations. No, when it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, and take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, like Mordecai, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. God was with them. He was with them. So, looking at this, when you combine the verses, yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord. The Gentiles that are going to come seek the Lord are the northern and southern kingdom. Isaiah 11, 10 through 12. That's who the Gentiles are going to seek. Those that were scattered out. In Jerusalem, we know that all nations won't be in Jerusalem. Isaiah 65, 17 through 19, and shall pray before the Lord. So we know everybody's not going to come in the new heavens and the new earth in Jerusalem seeking the Lord. It was just Israel. That's it. That's why it says, when you look at Micah, many ways to prove. See, these prophets didn't see it alone. There was others that saw it as well. Micah 4:1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. People shall flow. Who are these people that are going to flow unto it? It says, and people shall flow unto it. So if I'm looking, you got to think, brothers and sisters, how this works. You got to have precepts. Precepts are the only way of escape here. Because these Christians, I'm telling you, who's going to be the people that flow unto it? The book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah 31. Flow unto it now. Jeremiah 31 in verse 10. It says, hear the word of the Lord, O ye nations. Nations, O ye Gentiles. That's the nations. And declare it in the isles afar off, and say, he that scattereth Israel will gather him and keep him, as a shepherd doth his flock. For the Lord hath redeemed Jacob, and ransomed him from the hand of him that was stronger than he, the Gentiles. Here we go. Therefore they shall come and sing in the height of Zion, and shall flow together to the goodness of the Lord, for wheat and for wine and for oil and for the young of the flock and of the herd, and their soul shall be as a watered garden, and they shall not sorrow any more at all, like it says in Isaiah 65:19. No more sorrow. Revelation 21:4. No more sorrow. But who shall flow together to Zion? Israel. Israel shall flow together. So when we go back, see that flow together? So let's go back to Micah. Micah chapter 4, verse 1. In the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow into it. Who's going to flow into it? The people that's going to flow into it is Israel. And many nations shall come. That's the many nations that's going to flow. He's telling you, and many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. And he will teach us. The us is the many nations, which were the people, and the people shall flow unto it. The people that shall flow unto it was Israel and many nations, because that's the many nations, Abraham's children, shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, for we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations from afar. Many people, strong nations from afar. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Now you know what times this is. So nations shall not learn war anymore. But guess what? The people that are going to flow into it, the mountains, the many nations, the Israelites. We're showing you. But pay close attention. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree, and none shall make them afraid. Who is it that's not going to be afraid? Israel. For the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken it. None shall make them afraid. That's why this is how we put it in perspective. No more fear. Watch this. As we read on down. For all people will walk after everyone in the name of his God, his judge. And all people will walk everyone after the name of his God, which means they're going to go back to where they're from. You're going to see. At this time, you're going to see who the white Jesus belonged to. As you do today, you're gonna know all that truth about Hinduism and Buddhism and all that. You're gonna know. Everybody's gonna go back to his people, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. Which means everybody is not going to walk after our God. We are. Other nations are gonna return to where they are. So look at these prophets and how they see the end. The prophets see the end. They see the people returning to where they came, and Israel will be worshiping their God forever and ever. That's eternal life. A prophet, these prophets over and over see the end. So if we're going to take, if these prophets see the end, if they see the end, then how is it that Zechariah, watch this. How is it that Zechariah would see, all we've seen that was going to seek the Lord was Israel. How can this be, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass, that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. How can this be other nations when nobody else records that? We've seen an example of it in the book of Esther. When Mordecai had got freedom for his people, many of the people of the land became Jews. Those that became Jews were those scattered in idolatry. That's why it's important that you know, because in that same good day, no one celebrated but Israel, because that's all that was there in that good day was Israel. But you got to understand that any Jew that was in idolatry was a Gentile, as Paul said. Paul's letting you and I know that. That's why it says became as a Jew, because any Jew in idolatry was a Gentile, and they had to become as Jews again. How? By going back into their religion. They didn't have to give you all the details on that. That is the only way. I'm not just making things up. So these things you have to see. We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you, were those in idolatry that were going back. That's all that is. God is not saving the enemy with us. He's not. The Christians want to try to take away the enemy. You can't do it. You can't sit here and tell me one last time. You see the book of Esther 8. Verse 17 again. And in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness and feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews. Who became Jews? Those Jews in idolatry, which were Gentiles. For the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Now, again, a good day. So when you see that good day, you go right back to chapter 9. That good day. Chapter 9, verse 22. As the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, the enemies of the Gentiles, and the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to joy, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. On that good day, many of the Jews that were in idolatry, in captivity, which makes them Gentiles, once again became as Jews, because the fear of the Jews was noised throughout the province. God was behind them again. He was with them again. That's all this is saying. So those that came out of those languages and grabbed the skirt, which is the robe of him that was a Jew, and say, we will go with you. Here's the example. In Esther chapter 8, 17, and this is for comfort, 9 verse 22, to show you the good day. Everybody didn't become a Jew on the good day, or it would have never said, and the Jews rested from their enemies. Enemies. These Christians have you thinking that the enemy can be saved. No. God's enemies are not going to be saved. There's not a verse in the Bible that says God is going to save his enemies. And it doesn't say it here. On that good day, the Jews had rest from their enemies, and they were feasting, not a mixed multitude. Showing you that those that became Jews were those in idolatry. They came back to their religion, back to their liberation that was given to them from Mordecai and Esther, of course. See, it takes precepts, brothers and sisters. It takes precepts to understand these things, because Christians go to verses like Zechariah and they will say, oh, you know, all nations, it says right here, we're reading it as Zechariah 8, verse 23. But you know, when you look at verse 22 again, yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem and to pray before the Lord. You will not see another verse that says they of all nations, any nations, the enemy are going to come seek the Lord. That's not going to happen. That's why we read to you Hosea 3, 4, and 5. And we read to you 2 Chronicles 15, 3, and 4. To show you that Israel had gone without God, without law, without a priest, without an ephod, they had gone a long season without their God, because they had discontinued from their heritage. Jeremiah 17 and 4. And when they returned and seek the Lord, they were going to find him. So when they says, yea, many people and strong nations, that's talking about Israel shall come to seek the Lord, because that's who's going to seek him in the latter days. Nations aren't going to, you never will find that. And in Jerusalem too, the only ones we saw in Jerusalem in Isaiah 65, 17 through 19 was Israel. They were the only ones in Jerusalem in the new heavens and the new earth. It shows it. And we're going to pray before the Lord. That's it. Recorded recorded, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Those that are going to take hold out of the language of a Jew, or take hold out of the language, even out of the skirt of him that is a Jew, are other Jews which had been in idolatry, which were Gentiles according to Paul. For we have heard God is with you. This has nothing to do with other nations taking hold of the skirt of someone that is a Jew. It doesn't. You guys got to understand, salvation has to be read from old to new. Old to new. Precept must be upon precept. And with that, brothers and sisters, all praises. We hope we helped you with this. There's a lot of people inquire of these things, but it takes precepts to understand them. There are holes in the Christian doctrine. Remember, they take verses like these and they just call it out without any evidence from other prophets that this is true. They do that so they can interpret it themselves, and they stick with that. But we're just letting you know, don't do that, because whatever you read, wherever or whenever, wherever you are, whenever you read this book, you better have witnesses to this, or you could be lied to. And with that, brothers and sisters, all praises. We'll be back with you. We're going into Jeremiah 15 here in about another 2 or 3 days. So you'll be sure to want to tune in to that one. Again, brothers and sisters, all praises, one love and peace. May God be with us in these latter days. Let us do more than we have ever done before, because this work has to go out to the people. All praise, brothers and sisters.